How to excel in PChem. This is an Excel boot camp put on by me for my students. And this week's lesson, or this video's lesson, is going to be on anchoring cells. What do I mean by anchoring cells? Well, let's go to Excel. You must become good at anchoring cells to be successful in this class. One of the things that we do in Excel is we model the particle in a box. Now, every PChem class in the world studies the particle in a box. It's essentially an electron on a wire, kind of like an antenna. And the thing about this is it's a very simple wave function. As you can see here, it's just a sine function. And the energies can be solved with basic calculus. And here's the actual solutions. So we're going to derive these things in class. But as far as working in Excel, we build this up to get the actual spectrum of a particle in a box, something that's not done in any of the other classes that I've seen or any of the textbooks. This is the energy equation, and so if we put this energy equation over here for the analytical solutions, we can calculate the energy of this electron confined to a 7 angstrom wire, or a 7 angstrom atom, or some space that's 7 angstroms wide. These would be the energies, the quantized energy states for that electron. Let me go ahead and break this spreadsheet and then we'll fix it. So if you'll notice in this formula, we have all of the cell references. We have the length of the box, which is here in the denominator, D3. We have the mass of the electron, which is in the denominator. In the numerator here, we have Planck's constant written in two different ways. One way to give us energy, and the other way to cancel the length units for the length of the box. And then we also have Avogadro's number to give us the molar quantities of this energy. The temperature comes in later, and so does the Boltzmann factor. Let's focus on this equation. You see all of these dollar signs. These dollar signs are what we call anchors. And so if you'll notice that this dollar sign, if there's a dollar sign in front of the letter, that anchors the column, and if the dollar sign is in front of the number, that anchors the row. So let's look to see what happens if we remove these anchors. So if I put the cursor in any one of these locations and hit the key F4, I can cycle through all the different ways to anchor these values. So I'm going to get rid of all of the anchors. And so now these are called floating references. It's like a boat that floats. You can drag it along, but if it's anchored, it will not drag along. Notice the value hasn't changed, but when we copy it down, we run into trouble because all of our references have moved. So they're floating along with this cell as we copy it down, and that's a problem. See, now we're off the page, if you will. So we don't need these constants to float with our copied cells. Now we do want the quantum number to float, so we're not going to anchor F8 or F3 or what have you. So let's go back up and repair what we've done. We don't want to anchor the quantum number. We want it to float with us as we copied these cells down. But we do want to anchor Planck's constant. So I'm hitting F4 to put in the dollar signs automatically. We want to anchor Avogadro's number. We want to anchor the mass of the electron, and we want to anchor the box length. I hit enter, and now when I drag this down, it copies, and the values stay put. They're anchored in place. And yet the quantum number is floating along with us. Now, if I wanted to copy this down, one way is to drag it to the bottom, but that's going to become very tedious when we have 100 cells or 1,000 cells. You can just get on this corner here, and if it's adjacent to a list of numbers, I can just double click, and it copies it all the way down. Let's look at the next sheet here. We have this wave function psi. Let me go ahead and break this. And so here we have this function. Let me zoom in a little. Make it bigger for you so you can see. Notice I have some values here. This is the quantum number inside the wave function. It's referring up here. And there we want to anchor just the row, so the dollar sign is in front of the number. And over here, this is the x-axis. It's in column A, and we want to anchor that column so that when we copy this over from column to column for the other quantum states, we don't drag the x-axis with us. It's anchored in the first column. And then this over here, this control D3, that actually goes to the control page and is the length of the box. And so we click that, we hit anchor, enter, and so then that is referring to the control page. We want these physical constants like Planck's constant, the length of the box, the mass of the electron, all to be on the front page so that when we edit those numbers, it's changed for the whole workbook. We only have one version, one place where Planck's constant's defined in the mass of the particle and the length of the box, so that this whole workbook will be dynamic. Now let's talk about copying in large blocks of data. I can drag this all the way to the right and copy these to the right. And notice how the quantum number floated over with my cell, but the row is still anchored. But over here, the x-axis is still anchored on the first column. If I copy this down and over, I can do that. See here, the quantum number stays put on the second row, and the x-axis stays put on the first column. Let's show a couple of tricks here on how to copy large numbers of cell values. So this goes down for over 100 rows. And so I'm going to select all of these values at once and just double click this corner. And then that pasted in all 100 versions of the wave function formula. So that's a quick way to copy things around. And you're going to want to be fast with Excel. So these are some of the tricks. One other trick, this is a bonus pro tip. If you will hold the control key down and use the arrow keys, watch what happens. So I'm holding the control key down and I'm hitting the right arrow. It goes all the way to the right. If I control left, it goes all the way to the left. If I hit control down, it goes all the way to the bottom. Control up, it goes all the way to the top. If I want to go to the very top cell in the sheet, I hit control home and it goes to A1. Now if I wanted to just, later on we'll use this when we plot the first 5 wave functions. We'll select the top 5 cells and I'll hit control shift down arrow and it drags that selection all the way to the bottom. And so now I have that data selected and we can chart it. So that'll be our next tutorial, is how to plot multiple functions on one axis in the most efficient way. So as you can see, the main point is that you must become good at anchoring cells to be successful in this class. And as we continue the Excel bootcamp, you'll learn other skills. All right, have a great day.